Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Every time we get together with her, she brings up something that I've never thought of. And I think you're going to feel the same way today. And that is about approval. So many things we do in life, we think we need to get approval. We think we need to have approval. Maybe we're not even intentionally thinking that, but it's in the back of our minds. And all of this stuff is invariably holding us back from doing things that we want to, or we slow up what we're trying to do because we want to make sure that it meets approval of others. We're going to dig into that today. She is an amazing psychotherapist. It brings up these things that, we're thinking of, but we don't even know we're thinking of them. Susie Engel's back on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, Steve. How are you?
You make me think. Like I'm thinking about this, the approval thing. I'm gonna actually feel that it happens all the time, pun
Yeah.
intended, without our approval. We're just doing it, right?
Yeah, so I like that you're bringing up that we may not even be aware of it, and it may be just this murmur under the surface. But so now we're talking about the unconscious, and for some people, that is very a strong impetus, the unconscious driving our day-to-day actions. And many times you and I have spoken about feeling held back, or why are so many people stuck in life or walking around like zombies, not really living like they're alive, and so I think that there's this pressure that gets established early in life to achieve outside approval. And it's not abnormal, it's not a pathology. It's just that if it's off balance and we can't find within ourselves self-approval or a feeling of security, then
Mm,
we're going to be stuck.
wow.
And yeah, I was going to add on, but sit with
Go
that.
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, the other, you know, maybe taking it a step further is if somebody unconsciously is off balance in terms of needing external approval, look at how many times we may be in situations where the rules of the game change. So at first we think, well, if we're really, really good and we listen and we do really, really good work, we'll get that person's approval. But then think about it, they, um, sorry, they are jumping through hoops because the rules of the game are changing, not because we're changing, but because this external influence is saying, oh, one more hoop to jump through, one more thing to do to get my approval, or, the collective approval, whatever it is.
When we started this conversation today, I wasn't even considering our approval. That's a whole other category. We'll put that one to the side for a moment. But let's say you have an idea, maybe a side hustle, business, whatever. You're excited, but then you start tapping the brakes. You haven't really fully deployed it. What's holding you back? Maybe, or most often in the back of your mind, you want people to approve the idea. You have your friends, your family, you want them to be on board. You want, hey, that's a great idea. But you might be afraid that they might not say that. So now you go slower at it. You're hinting at it. You're not really putting yourself into it when deep inside you're like, this is a great idea, but we're looking for approval, right?
Yeah.
It's sad how that works. Why do we do that?
So part of that is just natural that we would like to develop a social circle, whether it's familial or friends or colleagues, where we are able to bounce off ideas and hear productive responses. But seeking approval is a little bit different than this. Seeking approval is speaking to a deep-seated and again unconscious insecurity where we cannot move forward if somebody doesn't give us the go ahead or the approval or the and who gave these people authority. Like at some point even children can gain a sense of agency and feel like, no, I'm going to give it a go, I'm going to build this the way I think it should be built, and if I fail, which is probably another reason why people do this, seeking
Mm,
approval. If I fail, I'll start over. I'll look for where the failure took place, and I'll resume the work from there and take a different turn, right? But then now we've got the whole, how are we informed of failure? Are we shamed about it? Or are we taught that it's a natural and also beneficial experience in life?
well, I feel that sure, we want to have support from others, but this goes deeper to childhood, where, of course, we don't want to fail. So maybe if we get that approval from others, if we do fail, at least they were on board with us at the same time. Um, do you feel most of this goes back to childhood?
Yeah, I always do. I always think that we always have to think about, if we have day-to-day problems, what's the root of these issues? It's not a superficial process. It's not just, oh, I'm feeling symptoms of this or that, like depression or anxiety, those big umbrella. No, it goes back to much deeper, deeply rooted beginnings of our developing our perception of our world, my Susan Engel's world, yours, Steve Harper's world. It's our perception, but who's informing us? And the problem is, it's not, I think it's a falsehood to be brought up believing that we don't want to fail or we shouldn't fail. I think that that even is other people's, shame. Like if I'm a parent and my child fails, is that a reflection of me? No, my child failed. It's normal. It's natural. This child, if left to his own devices, will learn from that. And it's the beauty. Like, look at how we don't have to tell kids how to crawl or how to walk. The children learn all on their own without other people interfering with what the standards are. And the
Mhm.
learning process goes very beautifully. And I think that that could be generalized throughout life, in transferable ways.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Okay.
The fear of failure is real, though, isn't it, for many of us?
I mean, it all depends on how you were informed about failure. If you were taught, I mean, there's a beautiful book. It's a very quick read. But I think the beauty of the book is the title, The Blessing of a Skinned Knee. And I think it has to do with attachment and parenting and things like that. But I mean, just the title, you don't even have to read the book to get the message
Right?
that failure, like the blessing of the skin. I mean, it's just a beautiful title, right?
That is really, really good. I gotta say,
Yeah,
when you think about that, as a kid, we all were, or as a parent, that you never want your kid to get hurt, and the skinned knee, you feel their pain, like, oh, huh, baby, I'll take care of it. Like,
I don't like that.
it's going to heal. It's going
Yeah,
to be okay. It's
and
all right.
I don't like that. It's just too like it developed. I mean, I think it plants seeds for codependence. I think it's planting subliminal messages or unconscious information about you can't handle it and I'm going to make it all better. Now, that self-soothing or co-soothing or the parent soothing, that starts in infancy. But after infancy, when the child learns co-soothing and the independent soothing, self-soothing, that's where we have to, like, I mean, we're talking about parenting, but it's also in all of our relationships. You know, and we've talked about this. I'd much rather somebody, you know, I'd much rather somebody realize that my colleague or my friend or my relative can handle it and doesn't need me to step in and interfere with unsolicited advice or, jumping in before they're feeling whatever they need to feel to learn from that experience. Does it make sense?
Yes, especially even when you're a parent and you have an infant and they start crying, and they're in their crib and they're crying in the middle of the night. You want to get up, pick up the baby, but then many of us should just say, keep crying, you'll figure it out, and then you'll stop crying, and then you'll know next time, that you can soothe
Well,
yourself.
especially if the baby is old enough and we know factually that the baby ate enough to
Yes.
sleep through the night. Now, little infants, they don't have enough capacity, so they wake up and they need more nourishment.
Yep.
But once the kids, then it's our problem because we don't want the kids to get scarred. Look, my pediatrician, when my son was 9 months old, my pediatrician said, "There's no reason for your baby to be waking up anymore. Let him cry for 35 minutes." And I was just like, "You've got to be out of your mind. Like,
Right.
I will never be able to." And I didn't discuss that with the doctor. I just said to myself, when my little baby boy cries tonight, I'm going to time it for 5 minutes and see if I can make it because I didn't know if I could or couldn't. And he cried for 2.5 minutes, rolled over, and went back to sleep and never woke up again. He always went to bed at 6 and woke up at 6 after that.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine letting my baby cry
We've
for
been there,
35
done
minutes.
that. I totally get it. I see it in my mind. I'm like rewinding back. And even also, I have friends who are parents with younger kids now. And said recently, yeah, my son came in the bed with me, and I have to do that every night. That's how we.
Can't
I'm
think
thinking to
of that.
myself,
It's true.
no, don't
Yeah.
do it. What are you doing?
Well, it's funny because I read this financial book. I forgot who the author is, but he's some commentator or opinionist. I don't know. But I was eager to read his book about financial investment. It was a very short book, very quick read. But at the end, it was very bizarre because, I mean, not bizarre, but he wrote some of his regrets in life. And this guy, he said, "Well, one of my regrets is that when my son wanted to come in my bed or our bed, I don't know whether he was single or married, I don't remember. I refused. I don't think that that's a good habit. I don't think that, but this is Susan Engel. This is Susie saying, I don't think it's a good habit. It's something you're going to have to break. The kid doesn't belong in an adult bed. Like, heck no. But this guy, in reflecting about his life, regretted that his child's childhood was so short that he cut him off from that perhaps joy, and I don't know, like maybe this author needs therapy. I don't know, but I'm not like into that. It's
Ah,
codependence.
it is, but then what that invariably what could that lead to? The child needing approval. I can't go to sleep unless I'm dumbing this down here for a moment. I can't go to sleep unless I have approval. I can't do this unless there's approval. I think it's a setup for potentially some challenges.
Or I can't sleep through the night without this outside security. And
Yeah.
that's not healthy. Like, if we don't develop that feeling of agency and security at a very early age, it interferes with every decision we make. I started a business when I was 27 years old, and there were a lot of naysayers and people who thought it was a ridiculous idea. I'm a chef as well as a site. I trained I apprenticed with a master chef in New York City, the executive chef of Dean and DeLuca. And it was a long period of time that I apprenticed with him. And nobody cooks and bakes like I do. I was not doubtful. I
Mm.
was confident. And I never thought I was going to fail. And even though there were people who were naysayers, it didn't detract me from my goal.
You said the word I was thinking just now, confidence. If we had or have confidence, we don't need approval from others.
Yeah.
Then think of it that way. How do we build that confidence no matter what it is in ourselves?
Well, so a lot of clients who come here, that is their goal. They want to
Mm.
believe in themselves and feel that felt sense. That's deeper. That's a whole body feeling of confidence, that felt sense of confidence. And what do we have to do? We have to go through this whole process of, were there other times when you did feel this confidence, and what was happening for you, and how did you lose that, and what events led to that, and what's familiar even earlier before you had confidence or lost confidence? What's familiar about the events that caused you to lose confidence if you had it? I mean, we all are born with it. We're all born with a blueprint to flourish. This is just common knowledge, biologically, neurologically, psychoneurologically, evolutionarily, anthropologically. I'm always talking about Alan Shore. This is just common knowledge. We are born with a blueprint to flourish in life.
100%. Because and you think of it, look at young children. They're unstoppable. They don't care. They'll they'll pick up a brush and use it as a microphone at 3 years old and start singing belting songs out. They'll try something different. They'll, to the point where you have to reel them in, like, be careful there, because there's no fear, right? Because you're right. Every child is a fresh start with everything they
Yeah.
need, the confidence, the creativity, the curiosity. It's all there. And then life begins.
Yes, and attachment trauma is trauma that can start in infancy, and we can start seeing babies not thriving, not because of organic brain stuff. I'm not talking about that. That's a
Right.
different situation. But, kids, babies who are born healthy, when life starts happening, whether it's attachment trauma or other traumas later on, or abuses or neglect, or the stress of the neighborhoods, or what have you, or parents being sick, or parents having a mental health problem, all these things affect, and children. Most of my clients can identify when they lost their free spirit.
Wow.
Well, with
Hmm.
the process, I mean, they need a little framework, but they're the only ones who know it. We don't know when somebody lost their free spirit. I don't know when somebody lost their confidence or never gained their confidence.
Do you mean that sometimes they can trace it back to even childhood where like we're identifying here, assuming a child is healthy and it's all good,
Yeah. Yes.
everything, 2 years old, 3 years old, and then whatever point people can identify where that ended, that all that stuff that you had as a kid, or a lot of it may have ended.
Yeah, and some things are pre-verbal too. Not to get overly complicated, but it's the fact of the matter. Some traumas happen pre-verbal, and we're not going to be able
Mm.
to say, oh, yeah, when I was 4.5 months old, I cried and cried and cried, and my, caregivers neglected me. We're not going to be able to say that, but we can see the effects of it. I mean, to me, it's just like obvious. I can see the symptoms of it. But there are other experiences that echo these things, or these traumas,
Mm.
because babies and children are dependent on caregivers. So that starts the need for approval.
Wow. Mm. So what do you do? You're an adult now. You have an idea. something's holding you back. You realize what it is, that I just want people to like my idea. Let's say you started a business, you're going to do a social media post. And you're like, let me just, let me, I don't, I got to think about this. You're procrastinating because you want it met with approval. You might not even know it, but you're,
Yes, it might be. We started there. It's unconscious.
yeah.
I think that that's very common, but it's also, it's the doubt, is am I important enough to post this? Because I
Hmm.
want to start this on social media. Yeah, are people going to be interested? Listen, some of these questions are fantastic. I don't think it's negative for us to think critically. I just think that if we have our own sense of agency and our felt sense of confidence, we're not going to be the individuals who live stuck in life. We're going to flourish the way we're designed to flourish. And that takes
Hmm.
some doing if we find ourselves stagnating. It's just personal development.
Are you saying, Susie, that yeah, let's say you nailed it. You got a sense of yourself. You figured this out. You did some work, figured out where it may have come from childhood. That there's going to be moments where you're going to double think something or,
Sure.
okay,
Sure. And I don't think that that should set off, that stress alarm system like, uh-oh, I better not do it. Or,
right.
you know, I just think it needs to be acknowledged. Like, can we just be? Maybe we're going to have those moments of doubt or self-questioning. I think that's wonderful. It's the same as failing. I think it's wonderful to fail because we learn, same with cooking. If we flop, with a dish, we go back and we think, what was it that we need to do differently? And then we have a growth, and relationships too. Then we have a growth spurt. I can finish sentences. Relationships too. Relationships, we stumble, we struggle, we're dealing with two people's nervous systems.
Mm.
But that's not something to pretend isn't happening. That's something to deal with and look at without fear, because when we figure this bump in the road out together, we're going to catapult, we're going to up level. The relationship should be stronger. But that happens within us internally. So, we're dealing with the parallel lines here. We're dealing with outside interactions and we're dealing with my relationship with myself.
Would
Does
you
it make
say,
sense?
final thought here, would you say that you want to get to a point where you're not questioning whether you should do something? It's more of you running it through your filter, just double checking. Let's say it's going to be a post, and some may look at it, maybe it's a new business or a new idea, and you're like, nah, I better not do that. I don't know how people are going to take it. As opposed to, let me just look this over again, make sure the wording is correct. Let me just give it a second look, and then I'm off and running. More of a filter than
I don't
something that's
know.
holding you back.
I don't see how we can't do everything through our own filter, right? So then we have to make sure our filter is the best filter possible. I,
Yes,
I guess that's how I would respond to that
but you
question or
don't want
comment.
to over filter it. The over filtering
Yeah.
would be I don't know how people are going to take this, and then
Well,
yeah,
the over filtering would be I'm going to do this to satisfy all these people rather than saying I want people to start thinking differently.
right. But I think the filter could also be you're afraid of how it's going to be met. Maybe we're saying the same thing. Maybe we're saying the same thing there.
Maybe. I don't
Hmm.
know.
I need therapy. Susie,
I don't, I think you're all right.
how do we connect with you? You have so much insight on a lot of stuff that we've talked about here. Even if somebody wants to ask you a question, see if it's a right fit, what's the best way to find you?
Yes, definitely. There's a contact request on my website, and my website is my name, Susan Engel hyphen LCSW.com.
And Susan Engel, SUSAN ENGEL. And again, that's dash LCSW.com.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you for today.
Thank you. This was very interesting.
Very much so. You always make us think, and certainly the approval thing, it's real. Like we're always looking for approval. I think we've established it's the degree of approval that we should be
Well,
seeking or should not.
and also the beginnings of it. Where is it really rooted for us? Because if it's rooted out of toxicity, we really have to weed that out.
For sure. And I think the only
Okay.
way to do that is with working with somebody like yourself, because it's
Yeah.
you're not going to see these things yourself.
No, it's very true. But this conversation might cause somebody to reflect in a very different way or cause their perspective to broaden in a very different way. So
100%.
it's a good thing. Yeah.
Thank you, and we'll catch up soon, okay?
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.